for joining us today. Much appreciated. Let's begin with a brief introduction of yourself, your role, and a little bit about your company.
Well, hi, Brian. I'm Scott Melbye. I'm Executive Vice President of Uranium Energy Corp. Very pleased to be with a company today that is one of the fastest growing uranium companies in the world, with assets focused in Canada and the United States. But I've been in the industry now 40 years, in uranium and nuclear energy the whole time. So I have to tell you how excited I am about just the prospects for nuclear energy in the energy mix again, and growing with all the energy needs of AI, data centers, electric vehicles. Nuclear is back in vogue, and we're one of the fastest growing companies to address that.
As a participant in the Nordic Funds and Mines conference, what are your key objectives for attending, and how do you hope this event will contribute to your company's goals in the current mining landscape?
Yeah, I mean, we already, the meetings that we've had here at Nordic Funds have been very productive. The Scandinavian investor obviously looking for all the things, the metrics behind investments that all institutions and individuals are looking for. But they also value things like sustainability, of which our company is a leading, we are the highest rated ESG sustainability index company in the uranium sector. That seems to really resonate. Also, the stable and safe jurisdictions seems to make a lot of sense to Scandinavian investors with the geopolitics of Russia, Ukraine. Obviously, hits close to home here. To have uranium coming from countries that aren't influenced by Russia and China is a common theme that we're hearing with discussions with investors.
You actually just touched on this, but you could elaborate a little bit more. But in light of recent geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, how is your company working to assure resource security and maintain its competitive position in the global market?
Well, this one hits really close to home. I also serve as president of the Uranium Producers of America, and nowhere have we been more vulnerable in terms of supply from Russia than in the United States. After the breakup of the Soviet Union, we opened up the markets to Russia, and in the United States ended up buying about 25% of our enrichment services that enriches uranium, for 20% of our electricity in the United States from nuclear, 50% of the raw material uranium coming from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Russia. So the mission for the U.S. uranium companies, and UEC being a leader in that regard, is to really reestablish our fuel cycle in the United States. So the opening of our mines in Texas and Wyoming, and seeing other companies in the space open up is giving a lot of comfort to those in Washington that finally passed a ban on Russian uranium earlier this year. Again, sending the signal that we're not going to rely on Russia and China for critical and strategic minerals and energy commodities.
And you also touched on this briefly, but with the growing focus on ESG in the mining industry, how are you leveraging this conference to showcase your company's initiatives to the Nordic investment community, known for strong emphasis on responsible investing?
Yeah, ESG is a funny topic for uranium miners because we've had to be very good at health, safety, and environment forever, because we are a controversial industry and we have to go the extra distance to convince local communities to give us the social license to operate. So when ESG came along, we're like, oh, great, this is something we're already doing, maybe expanded to include carbon emissions. So our company fully embraced this, too, because of the technology that we use, in situ recovery or solution mining of uranium, has a very low carbon footprint. The impact on the environment is minimal. So it's not surprising we score very highly in that regards. But the electric utility companies like Vattenfall here in Sweden have long insisted that the companies that supply uranium to their clean, green nuclear energy plants here in Sweden be powered by companies that are socially responsible and take great care to their employees and the environment.
With the recent restart of ISR uranium production at the Christensen Ranch in Wyoming, what are your production targets for the coming year, and how do you plan to ramp up operations, and if there's anything else to add to that with regards to any other current operational developments?
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud to have acquired the assets, the Christensen Ranch Irigaray operations. We acquired from the Russian State Atomic Energy Rosatom These were the assets in the Powder River Basin of Wyoming that were in the middle of America's heart of the energy breadbasket of the United States. Here sat the Russians with this really key uranium asset. We bought it back from the Russians only 6 months prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and are now bringing those back into production. We resumed operations in August, and we'll be doing the same with our Texas operations this time next year. The goal is to ramp up, obviously, at small startup volumes, but ramp up to 5 to 6 million pounds from annual production from the two mines in the United States, of where we have 100 million pounds of resources within 50 to 100 miles of these two central processing plants we have in those two key states.
This is a common theme that keeps coming up, so I will ask you to elaborate a little bit more. But given the current global focus on energy security and the potential for increased nuclear adoption, especially in the U.S. and in North America and in the EU, how is United Energy Corporation positioning itself to meet potential growth in the uranium demand?
Yeah, well, we see the growth in nuclear energy, having been in the industry this many years, seeing not only the green energy transition, which favors carbon-free nuclear, but now the AI data center demand and just the demand for electricity in general from electric vehicles really driving the discussion for countries needing not just clean energy, but more energy. We had Microsoft enter into a deal with Constellation Energy to reopen a shuttered nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. We have Amazon buying the output of a nuclear power plant also in Pennsylvania for their data center. And Bill Gates, again, developing small modular advanced reactor designs called TerraPower Natrium Reactor that will power their data centers, their first-of-a-kind unit going into Wyoming as the first demonstration. So we see this demand. We've seen this demand building from traditional utility demand, but also now kind of the tech industry really coming into this space. And what a good time for us to have operations with 100 million pounds of resources and ramping up to meaningful production levels at a very low production cost. Our all-in cost at our operations in Texas, Wyoming is about $40 per pound. The current market price is $80, and our order book is completely unhedged. All of our uranium is uncommitted going into this period of scarcity, call it a supply squeeze. Wonderful time to have all of our production unhedged and in front of us.
With operations in both Wyoming and Texas, how do you balance resource allocation between these projects, and what are your priorities for developing in the near term?
Well, the easy answer is we're developing both concurrently, and the reason being that our ISR technology, this is not high capital intensive, hundreds of millions of dollars required to build these mines. We're literally talking tens of millions. In fact, that ramp up to 5 million pounds by 2030, we're probably looking at capital in the range of $50 million to get to that point. That's really nothing in mining terms. That would be the budget for tires in a conventional mine, big mine. So the reason it's so low capital intensity, we have the main processing infrastructure, and our mines are built as satellites, which just involve the construction of satellite ion exchange columns and well fields. The well fields look a lot like an oil and gas well field with collector header houses and trunk lines that bring the solutions to the plant to be shipped to the processing plant for uranium yellowcake production. So easy answer is we're developing both, and by the end of the decade we could also be advancing on our Saskatchewan investments at Rough Rider. And I would be remiss to not mention the acquisition we made on Monday from Rio Tinto for $175 million. We acquired 175 million pounds in Wyoming that were held by Rio Tinto, including a conventional mill that has been on standby there for many years. So we have the potential to have a third hub and spoke center of processing in the United States, 2 in Wyoming, 1 in Texas, and then advancing in Saskatchewan, probably in the 2030 timeframe onward.
Appreciate you taking the time to answer some of our questions. It was wonderful to learn more about your operations and your company, and wish you the best of luck at the remainder of the conference. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
You.
Much appreciated.